What happens when the weakest member of the pack becomes the only one who can save them all? For Alara Moss, life had always been measured in silence. As the lowest-ranked Omega in the Silvercrest pack, she existed in the margins, cooking, cleaning, accepting the sneers and casual cruelty as her daily bread. 23 years old, and she'd never shifted. 23 years old, and her wolf remained locked away, a whisper she could barely hear. The pack elders said some Omegas were simply too weak. Her parents said nothing at all. But when Alpha Marcus Thorne chose the Harvest Moon ceremony to reject her as his fated mate in front of 200 witnesses, everything changed. And what happens next? No one was prepared for. 3 days before the rejection that would reshape destiny, Alara had been gathering healing herbs in the forbidden eastern woods when she heard it, a low, wounded whine that made her chest ache. She should have turned back. The Eastern Territory bordered the no man's lands, where rogue wolves and worse things hunted. But the sound came again, weaker this time, and Alara's feet moved before her mind could object. She found him in a ravine, a massive wolf with fur the color of storm clouds and eyes like molten silver. Blood matted his coat, spreading from deep claw marks across his shoulder and flank. He should have torn her throat out for approaching. Instead, those silver eyes tracked her movement with an intelligence that stole her breath. "Easy," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I'm going to help you." The wolf's lips pulled back, revealing teeth that could snap her spine, but he didn't move as she knelt beside him. Her hands trembled as she pulled wolfsbane salve and clean cloth from her gathering basket. The scent of aged oak and winter snow clung to his fur, mixed now with copper blood and the sharp edge of pain. She worked quickly, cleaning the wounds with gentle efficiency. The wolf watched her the entire time, never once looking away. When she pressed the salve into the deepest gash, he released a low rumble that vibrated through her bones. Not a growl, but something else. Something almost like recognition. "There," Alara murmured, tying off the final bandage with strips torn from her own shawl. "That should hold until you can shift and heal properly, though I don't know why you haven't already." She trailed off, studying the unusual depth of the wounds. Something had hurt him badly enough to prevent his natural healing. Something powerful. The wolf's eyes narrowed, and for just a moment, she could have sworn she saw the shadow of a man looking back at her. Then he pushed himself to his feet with obvious effort, towered over her for one breathless second, and vanished into the deeper woods like smoke. Alara had walked home in a daze, the scent of winter snow clinging to her skin, wondering if she'd imagined the entire encounter. She hadn't been imagining anything. The Harvest Moon ceremony came too quickly. Alara stood in the Great Hall, with its vaulted ceilings and ancestral banners, surrounded by pack members in their finest clothes. The air thrummed with anticipation and the mingled scents of hundreds of wolves, pine and musk, leather and earth, excitement sharp as citrus. And underneath it all, growing stronger by the second, the scent that had haunted her dreams since she turned 18. Forest and embers, ozone and steel. Marcus Thorne, Alpha Heir, her fated mate. The bond had snapped into place 5 years ago during a border patrol. She'd been delivering supplies, he'd been returning from a hunt, and their eyes had met across the compound. The world had tilted. Every romance tale she'd ever heard spoke of fated mates as the moon goddess's greatest blessing. Two souls perfectly matched, drawn together by forces older than time itself. But Marcus had looked at her like she was a stain on his boot. 5 years of not yet. 5 years of wait until I'm ready. 5 years of watching him take other women to his bed, while the mate bond burned in her chest like a brand she couldn't remove. Her parents had urged patience. The pack elders said an alpha needed time to sow wild oats before settling. Ilara had waited, because what else could an Omega do? Now Marcus stood on the raised platform at the hall's center, devastatingly handsome in formal leathers, his dark hair pulled back to reveal the sharp angles of his face. The current alpha, his father, stood beside him with the ancient binding cords in his weathered hands. Tonight, Alpha Thorne Sr. announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. My son claims his mate and his birthright. Tonight, the pack witnesses the beginning of a new era. A wave of power washed over the assembled wolves as Marcus stepped forward. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been positioned near the back of the hall, as befitted her rank. But now pack members shifted aside to create a path. She moved forward on numb legs, her simple gray dress suddenly feeling like rags among the finery around her. She made it 3 steps before she smelled it. Cinnamon and iron, blood and possessive rage. Before she saw her, Kara Vex stood beside Marcus on the platform. Beautiful, powerful Kara, daughter of the Beta, with her copper hair and warrior's build, and the casual cruelty that came from never once being denied. She wore crimson silk that clung to every curve, and she wore it like armor. Her hand rested on Marcus's arm. Time stopped. "The moon goddess," Marcus began, his voice ringing out clear and cold, "grants us fated mates as a guide, not a command. She shows us options, not obligations. No, this wasn't. For 5 years. I have carried the mate bond to Ilara Moss." His eyes found hers across the hall, and there was no warmth in them. No recognition of the sleepless nights, the patient waiting, the hope she'd clung to like a lifeline. For 5 years, I have evaluated what the pack needs, what I need. The scent of forest and embers grew overwhelming as his power pressed against every wolf present. Ilara's knees buckled, but pride kept her standing. Barely. The pack does not need an Omega Luna who cannot shift, cannot fight, cannot lead. The pack needs strength. His hand covered Kara's, and the gesture sent a spike of agony through Ilara's chest. I need a mate worthy of standing at my side. Marcus, her voice came out broken, barely a whisper. Please, his lip curled. I, Marcus Thorne, alpha heir of the Silvercrest pack, formally reject you, Ilara Moss, as my fated mate. May the moon goddess guide you to a more appropriate path. The bond didn't just break, it detonated. Ilara's scream echoed off the vaulted ceiling as invisible claws shredded through her chest, her soul, her very essence. The mate bond that had been wound around her heart for 5 years unraveled in a cascade of white-hot agony. She felt it sever, felt the piece of Marcus that had lived inside her rip away like flesh from bone. She collapsed, her hand slapped against cold stone. Blood dripped from her nose, her ears, the corners of her eyes. Somewhere in the screaming void of pain, she heard gasps, heard her mother's choked sob, heard Kara's triumphant laugh. "Get her out of here," Marcus commanded, his voice distant and distorted through the ringing in Ilara's ears. "I won't have her embarrassment spoil the ceremony." Hands grabbed her arms, guards, judging by the leather and steel scent. They hauled her upright even as her legs refused to support her weight. Through blurred vision, she saw her father in the crowd, his face ashen. Their eyes met. He looked away. Her mother, standing beside him, pressed her hand to her mouth, but made no move to intervene. No move to help. No move to defend their only daughter from this public execution masquerading as ceremony. The guards dragged Ilara through the hall, her feet scraping against stone. Pack members moved aside like she carried plague. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked indifferent. A few smiled. Behind her, she heard Marcus's voice rising again. Now, let us proceed with the true ceremony. Kara Vex, daughter of Beta Vex, I claim you as my chosen mate. The words faded as the guards hauled Alara through the great doors and into the frigid autumn night. They didn't stop at the pack house. They didn't even pause at the compound gates. They dragged her past the boundaries, past the watch posts, into the wild lands beyond pack protection. Alpha's orders, one of the guards muttered, almost apologetic. You're banished. Don't come back. They released her arms, and Alara crumpled to the frozen ground. Through tears and blood and pain that wouldn't stop, wouldn't stop, wouldn't stop, she watched them retreat toward the warm lights of home. No, not home. Not anymore. The first snowflake landed on her cheek like a frozen kiss. She looked up at the sky and realized what night it was. The harvest moon had passed behind storm clouds, and in its place, the scent of approaching blizzard hung heavy in the air. The temperature was already plummeting. She wore a thin dress, no coat, no shoes meant for wilderness travel. They'd sent her out to die. Alara pushed herself to her knees, then her feet. Every movement sent fresh waves of agony through her chest where the bond had torn away. Her wolf, her silent, sleeping wolf, remained utterly still. No help, no comfort, nothing. She started walking because standing still meant freezing meant giving up, and she wasn't ready for that yet. Not yet. The blizzard hit an hour later with vicious intent. Wind shrieked through the trees, driving snow so thick Alara couldn't see 5 feet ahead. Her dress clung to her skin, soaked through and already stiffening with ice. She'd lost feeling in her feet. Her fingers had gone from painful to numb. She stumbled over roots she couldn't see, crashed through bushes that tore at her skin. Blood from a dozen small wounds mixed with melting snow. But even that stopped flowing as the cold bit deeper. Through the white chaos, she spotted a dark shape, a structure of some kind. Alara lurched toward it with the last of her strength. An old barn, half collapsed, its roof mostly intact. She fell through the doorway and crawled to the corner farthest from the wind. Her body shook violently. Hypothermia, some distant part of her mind supplied. Advanced stages. She was dying. The irony struck her with unexpected clarity. An alpha had rejected her. Her pack had cast her out. Her parents had abandoned her. And now the wilderness would finish what Marcus had started. She'd never shifted. Never run on 4 legs under the full moon. Never felt the joy other wolves described like religious experience. She'd never been enough. I'm sorry, Alara whispered to her silent wolf, to the moon goddess, to herself. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. The shaking slowed. That was bad, she knew. When you stopped shivering, the end was close. Her eyes drifted shut. This is it. The last thing she saw was darkness. The last thing she smelled was her own scent, lavender and morning dew and wildflowers, fading into nothing. The last thing she felt was peace. Warmth. The first sensation that penetrated the void was warmth, blessed and impossible. Alara's eyes fluttered open to darkness, but not the darkness of death. The darkness of the barn at night, with storm winds still howling outside, but somehow distant. She tried to move and realized she couldn't. Not because she was frozen, but because she was surrounded. Wolves. Her breath caught. She turned her head slowly, carefully, and counted them in the dim light filtering through cracks in the barn walls. 1. A massive beast with midnight fur lay pressed against her left side, radiating heat like a furnace. 2. A silver-gray wolf guarded her feet, its eyes gleaming gold in the darkness. 3. A russet-colored female curved along her right side. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 enormous wolves formed a living barrier around her, their combined body heat creating a pocket of warmth in the frozen night. They'd arranged themselves with military precision, some facing outward as sentries, others pressed close to share warmth, all positioned to protect the fragile human at their center. She should have been terrified. She was dinner surrounded by apex predators. But as her awareness sharpened, she noticed details that didn't fit. These weren't ordinary wolves. They were too large, too coordinated, too aware. The midnight wolf beside her opened one eye, brilliant amber, intelligent, assessing. It studied her for a long moment, then released a low chuff that sounded almost like satisfaction. "You're protecting me," Elara whispered. Her voice came out hoarse, damaged by screaming and cold. "Why?" The wolves didn't answer. They simply maintained their vigil, keeping the storm at bay, keeping death at bay, keeping her alive through a night that should have killed her. She drifted in and out of consciousness as hours passed. Each time she woke, the wolves were there. When she shivered, they pressed closer. When she whimpered from the phantom pain of the severed bond, a few released soft whines in response, not mockery, but empathy. Dawn came slowly, gray light seeping through the storm. The blizzard had finally exhausted itself. The wolves began to stir, stretching and shifting positions. Elara pushed herself upright, her muscles screaming in protest. "Thank you," she said to them, to all of them. "I don't understand why you helped me, but thank you." The midnight wolf rose to its full height, and Elara's breath caught. It was enormous, easily the size of a small horse, with paws as wide as her head, and a presence that pressed against her senses like physical weight. An alpha, a powerful one. It moved toward her with fluid grace, and she fought the instinct to cower. The wolf stopped inches away, lowered its great head, and met her eyes. The scent of aged oak and winter snow washed over her. No, it couldn't be. The wolf she'd saved in the eastern woods, the wounded stranger whose blood she'd cleaned, whose pain she'd eased. But he'd been large. This creature was colossal. Unless, the air shimmered. Power rolled off the wolf in waves that made Elara's skin prickle, and her silent wolf stir for the first time in days. A flutter of awareness, of response. The shift happened faster than she'd ever seen. Reality bending around the wolf as fur became flesh, paws became hands, until a man crouched before her. Not just any man. He rose to his full height, towering over her even though she was sitting. Scars marked his torso, old battle wounds, claw marks, the evidence of a violent life. His hair was dark as midnight shot through with silver at the temples, falling past his shoulders. His features were carved from granite and authority, all sharp angles and hard lines. But his eyes, those silver eyes, held the same ancient intelligence she'd seen in the wounded wolf, and the scent of aged oak and winter snow clung to him like a second skin. "You," Elara breathed. His lips curved into the barest hint of a smile. "You saved my life 3 days ago, little Omega. Did you think I wouldn't return the favor?" His voice was gravel and smoke, dark honey, and barely leashed power. It resonated through her chest, made her wolf perk up with sudden interest. Around them, the other 9 wolves shifted as well. 8 men and 1 woman. All large, all scarred, all radiating the kind of strength that made Alpha Marcus look like a child playing dress-up. "Who are you?" Elara asked, though some part of her already knew. Some part of her had known the moment she'd touched that wounded wolf, and felt power older than pack laws thrumming beneath his fur. The man extended his hand to her. "I am Theron Blackwood, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, Lord of the Mountain Packs, Commander of the Shadow Guard." He gestured to the 9 warriors surrounding them. "And we've been waiting for you, Elara Moss. We've been searching for you for a very, very long time." She stared at his offered hand, at the man who commanded kings, at the impossible situation unfolding in a half-collapsed barn in the middle of nowhere. "Waiting for me. I'm nobody. I'm an Omega who can't even shift. I was just rejected and banished." "You were bound," Theron interrupted, his silver eyes flashing with something that might have been anger. "Your power was locked away before you could even understand what you were. The rejection you suffered, the pain you endured. It wasn't the end of your story, little one. It was the key that finally set you free." He stepped closer, still holding out his hand. "I can smell the binding breaking. I can see the cracks forming in the cage that held your wolf captive. What happened to you was cruel and unjust, but it was also necessary." "Necessary?" The word came out sharp, bitter. "My heart being ripped apart was necessary." "No." His expression softened infinitesimally. "Your suffering was never necessary, but the bond breaking that shattered the magical seal that bound you. And now," he tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her feel naked, despite her ruined dress. "Now you can finally become who you were always meant to be." Elara's hand trembled as she reached for his. The moment their skin touched, lightning arced between them. Not pain, but power. Recognition. Her wolf surged forward for the first time in her life, not silent and sleeping, but aware. Theron pulled her to her feet with gentle strength. "The prophecy spoke of you, you know. The old texts, the ancient songs. When the weakest is cast into winter's embrace, when the false bond shatters and the true path clears, she will rise. We've searched every pack for a decade, looking for signs, following whispers of Omegas with sealed wolves. And then 3 days ago, a small, brave woman with lavender scent and gentle hands saved my life without hesitation, without question, without asking for anything in return." He reached up and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear, the gesture unexpectedly tender. "That's when I knew. That's when I called my guard. We've been tracking you ever since, waiting for the moment when I'd be rejected and thrown away like garbage." Elara pulled her hand back, emotion surging through her chest. "When I'd be humiliated in front of my entire pack, when my own parents would stand by and watch me bleed? When you'd be free," Theron said quietly. "When the cage would finally break. I'm sorry it happened the way it did. If I could have prevented your pain, I would have. But some locks can only be opened from the inside, by specific keys, in specific ways." One of the other guard members stepped forward, a woman with auburn hair and kind eyes. "My name is Sarah. What Theron is trying to explain, perhaps poorly, is that you're not what you think you are. You never were." "Then what am I?" Elara demanded, exhaustion and confusion, and the strange new awareness of her wolf, making her bold. "What could I possibly be that required locking me away? I'm weak. I'm nothing." "You," Theron said, his voice dropping to something almost reverent, "are the matriarch, the alpha of alphas, the moon's chosen vessel of authority. And once your power fully awakens, there won't be a wolf alive who can stand against you. Not in strength, not in authority, not in anything." The words hung in the frigid air like impossibilities. Elara laughed, a broken sound. "You're insane. Look at me. I can't even shift." "Yet," Sarah said gently. "You can't shift yet, but you will. Soon." as if in response to her words. Something moved inside Alara's chest, something vast and ancient and utterly awake, her wolf, her silent companion, her absent half, no longer sleeping. Hello, a voice said inside her mind, feminine and powerful and achingly familiar. I'm sorry I was quiet for so long. They made sure I couldn't reach you, but I'm here now. I'm here, and we're going to burn the world. Alara gasped, staggered. Theron caught her elbow, steadying her. Easy. The first contact can be overwhelming. She spoke, Alara whispered. My wolf, she's really there. She's always been there. Theron's thumb brushed across her wrist, a grounding touch. She's been waiting, just like we have. Now, we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere warm. Somewhere you can learn to control what's about to happen. What is about to happen? Theron's smile was sharp as broken glass. Your first shift, little matriarch, and when it comes, it's going to shake the foundations of every pack for 1,000 miles. I don't know how. You won't have to know. When the time comes, your wolf will guide you. He stepped back and nodded to his guard. We move. The storm's passed, but her old pack might send trackers to confirm the kill. I'd rather not be here when they arrive. The Shadow Guard shifted back into their wolf forms with practiced ease, each transformation smooth as water. Theron remained human long enough to remove his cloak, thick fur and leather, still warm from his body heat, and drape it around Alara's shoulders. Ride with me, he said. It'll be faster. Before she could protest, he shifted. The massive midnight wolf lowered himself to the ground, and Alara understood. She was meant to ride him like a horse. It should have been degrading for an Alpha King, should have been forbidden by pack law and basic respect. But Theron simply waited, patient and unbothered. Alara climbed onto his back, her fingers tangling in thick fur. The moment she settled, he rose and began to run. The world became a blur of white and green, of snow-covered trees and frozen streams. The Shadow Guard formed a protective formation around them, 4 ahead, 4 behind, Sarah running alongside. They moved with supernatural speed, covering ground that should have taken days in mere hours. And with every mile, Alara felt it building. The power, the presence. The thing inside her that had been locked away for 23 years, now stirring like a dragon waking from centuries of sleep. Soon, her wolf whispered. Very soon. They reached the northern territory as the sun touched the horizon, painting the snow in shades of gold and blood. The mountain range rose before them like ancient sentinels, and nestled in the valley between 2 peaks, a fortress carved from the living stone. Not a pack house, a citadel, home of the Alpha King. Guards lined the walls, dozens of them, all wolves, all powerful. They bowed as Theron passed through the gates, their respect absolute. Alara felt their eyes on her, felt their confusion at seeing a bedraggled Omega riding the king's back, but none dared question it. Theron carried her to the main building, through corridors lined with tapestries, depicting ancient battles and old magic, to a chamber that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the valley. A fireplace large enough to stand in, crackled with welcoming heat. The furniture was simple but exquisite, all dark wood and soft furs. He shifted back to human form, unconcerned with his nudity. Alpha males rarely were. A servant appeared with clothing, which he pulled on with efficient movements. This will be your room, Theron said, for however long you need it. You're safe here, Alara. I give you my word. She pulled his cloak tighter around herself. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. I owe you my life, he said simply. And beyond that, the prophecy binds us. I am the guardian. You are the matriarch. Our paths were written in starlight before either of us drew breath. What does the prophecy say exactly? Theron walked to the window, his silhouette backlit by dying sun. When he spoke, his voice took on the cadence of ritual, of old words passed through generations. When winter's cruelest night descends, when the weakest breaks and the false bond ends, the matriarch will rise from ash and snow, power beyond measure, mercy in her soul. She will be betrayed by those she trusts. She will be broken by what she must. But from the shards of pain, a queen will grow, and the guardian will find her where lost wolves go. Silence fell between them. Outside, the last light faded. My parents, Alara said quietly. The binding. They did it, didn't they? Theron turned to face her. We'll find out tomorrow. For tonight, you need rest, healing, food. He moved toward the door, then paused. Your wolf is waking, Ilara. You'll feel restless, agitated. The shift could come at any time. When it does, don't fight it. Surrender to it. Trust her. What if I can't? You can. The certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. You were made for this. He left, and Alara was alone for the first time since the rejection. She walked to the window, looked out over the valley now silver with moonlight, and felt her wolf pressing against her skin from the inside. Not yet, the voice said. But soon. Rest now. Gather strength. When we emerge, we'll show them what we really are. Alara stripped off the ruined dress, washed in the basin provided, and climbed into the enormous bed. She should have been unable to sleep. Everything was too strange, too much, too fast. But exhaustion claimed her, pulled her down into darkness. And in her dreams, she ran. On 4 legs instead of 2, powerful and fast and free, her howl shaking the very stars. She woke to voices, low, tense, coming from somewhere beyond her room. Alara slipped from the bed, pulled on the soft clothes that had been left for her, leather pants and a tunic, far finer than anything she'd ever owned, and crept to the door. Confirmed. Theron's voice, hard as iron. Yes, Alpha King. An unfamiliar male voice, roughened by travel. The parents confessed. They bound her wolf when she was 3 days old, used forbidden magic from the old bloodline. They were afraid of what she'd become, afraid she'd be taken from them or killed if anyone discovered what she was. Fear. Sarah's voice dripped with contempt. They crippled their own daughter out of fear. There's more. The unfamiliar voice continued. The pack knows she didn't die in the storm. Marcus has declared her a rogue, placed a bounty on her capture. He wants her brought back for, he calls it justice. He means execution, Theron growled. He rejected her, cast her out to die, and now he wants to hunt her down? For what crime? Existing, apparently. He's gathering support from neighboring packs, claiming she's a threat. That she stole something from the pack before she left. Alara's hands clenched into fists. Of course Marcus would twist the narrative. Of course he'd make her the villain in a story where he was the one who'd torn out her heart. She pushed the door open. The voices cut off abruptly. Theron, Sarah, and 3 other guard members stood in the hall, along with a road-worn messenger. They turned to her in unison. How much did you hear? Theron asked. Enough. Alara stepped fully into the corridor, chin raised despite the trembling in her hands. My parents bound me. Marcus wants me dead, and I'm apparently worth a bounty. You're worth more than all of them combined, Sarah said fiercely. Then prove it. Alara looked at Theron, at the Alpha King who commanded hundreds, maybe thousands. You say I'm this matriarch. You say I have power. Then unlock it. Teach me. Because I'm done being weak. Done being afraid. Done letting people hurt me without consequence. A slow smile spread across Theron's face. There she is, the queen beneath the Omega's mask. He nodded to the guard. Clear the training grounds. We're going to see what our matriarch can do. They led her outside to a massive courtyard surrounded by high walls. Dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, and the air carried the crisp bite of mountain winter. Dozens of wolves had gathered along the walls. Word had spread quickly. They watched with curiosity and skepticism as Alara walked to the center of the yard. Theron stood beside her, his presence solid and grounding. Your wolf is awake. You can feel her, yes? Yes. Then call to her. Ask her to come forward. How? You'll know. Alara closed her eyes. Inside her chest, inside her mind, she felt the presence of her wolf. Massive, patient, powerful. Hello again, she thought tentatively. Hello, beloved. Her wolf's voice was warm, honey and steel. Ready to show them who we are. I don't know what to do. Then let me guide you. Open yourself. Let me through. Alara took a breath, then another, then opened something inside herself she hadn't known was closed. The wolf surged forward like a tidal wave. The shift began. But nothing had prepared her for this. In every story, every description, wolves talked about shifting as breaking and reforming, bones snapping, pain and struggle. This was nothing like that. This was power flowing like water through a dam that had finally cracked. Her bones didn't break. They flowed. Her spine extended, her limbs reshaped, and instead of agony, there was only pressure. Intense, overwhelming pressure as her body remembered its true form. Fur erupted across her skin in waves of silver white, each hair catching the dawn light like captured starlight. She felt herself growing, expanding, her perspective shifting as she rose higher and higher above the ground. Energy crackled around her in visible waves, disturbing the snow in perfect circles. Her senses exploded outward. She could smell every wolf watching, could hear heartbeats from inside the fortress, could taste magic on the wind. The shift completed, and Alara opened her eyes. The world looked different from this height. She stood taller than Theron's wolf form, taller than any alpha she'd ever seen. Her paws left impressions in the stone, like it was soft clay. And when she looked down at herself, at her new form, she saw fur that seemed to generate its own light, luminous silver white like captured moonbeams. But her eyes, she could see them reflected in the polished walls, not brown like her human form, not gold or amber like most wolves. Her eyes burned violet, the color of prophecy and old magic, and they glowed with their own inner fire. Beautiful, her wolf whispered. We are beautiful. Alara threw back her head and howled. The sound started deep in her chest and built into something that shook the very air. It wasn't just noise, it was power, pure and primal, rolling out in waves that made every wolf in the courtyard drop to their knees. It echoed off the mountains, carried for miles, a declaration of presence and strength and awakening. She howled, and the world listened. When the sound finally faded, Alara looked around the courtyard. Every single wolf had bowed, not out of fear, though she scented that too. Out of instinctive recognition. Their wolves knew what she was, even if their human minds struggled to process it. Even Theron had lowered his head, though his silver eyes gleamed with satisfaction and something that might have been pride. Only one guard member remained standing, a tall man with a scarred face and ice-blue eyes. He stared at her with open wonder. Then slowly, deliberately, he too went to one knee. The matriarch, he said, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. The prophecy is fulfilled. The matriarch, the others echoed. a ripple of sound through the gathered wolves. The matriarch. Ilara felt their submission like a tangible thing, felt the pack bonds that tied them to Theron now reaching toward her, seeking connection, seeking permission to belong to something greater than themselves. "Accept them," her wolf urged. "They are ours to protect." She didn't know how she knew what to do. Instinct guided her as she released a pulse of power, acknowledgement and acceptance rolling out like a wave. The bonds clicked into place, not replacing their loyalty to Theron, but adding another layer. She felt each wolf like a distant heartbeat, the shadow guard burning brighter than the rest, but all of them present, all of them hers. She shifted back to human form, and this time the transition was smooth as breathing. One moment wolf, the next moment woman, standing naked in the center of the courtyard, with violet eyes still glowing and power still crackling across her skin. Sarah rushed forward with a cloak, wrapped it around Ilara's shoulders. "I've never seen anything like that." "Neither have I," Theron said, approaching with measured steps. His eyes held awe and heat and careful control. "Your wolf is enormous. Your power signature rivals mine, maybe surpasses it. And your eyes." He reached up, cupped her face with surprising gentleness. The old texts spoke of violet eyes, the mark of the matriarch. I didn't know if it was literal or metaphorical. "It seems to be literal," Ilara managed, her voice shaky. The shift had left her energized and exhausted in equal measure. "How do you feel?" Like I just remembered how to breathe after 23 years of suffocating." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "That's exactly what happened. Your wolf was starved, locked away, barely surviving. Now she's free, and the two of you are finally whole." He dropped his hand, stepped back. "But this is just the beginning. You can shift now. But you need to learn control. Power without mastery is just chaos waiting to happen." "Then teach me." "Oh, I intend to." His smile was sharp and promising. "Starting today." The training began immediately and proved more intense than anything Ilara had imagined. Shifting became easier with practice. By the third day, she could transition between forms in seconds. But control was harder. Her enhanced senses overwhelmed her at first. She could hear conversations happening in rooms 3 floors away, could smell individual pack members from across the fortress, could feel the emotional states of every wolf bonded to her, a constant background hum of sensation. "You need to learn to filter," Sarah explained during one session. She'd become something of a mentor, guiding Ilara through the intricacies of alpha authority. "Right now, you're taking in everything. It'll drive you mad if you don't build mental barriers." They worked on it for hours each day. Meditation, focus exercises, building walls in her mind to organize the flood of input. Slowly, painfully, Ilara learned to control the flow, to choose what she paid attention to and what she let fade to background noise. The empathic abilities proved equally challenging. She could feel what other wolves felt: fear, joy, pain, aggression. During a sparring session between 2 guard members, she'd had to flee the yard when their battle lust hit her like a physical blow. "It's too much," she gasped to Theron, who'd followed her. "I can't. How do you deal with this constantly?" "I was born into my power. It grew with me." He handed her water, waited while she drank. "You had 23 years of it suppressed, and now it's flooding through all at once. But you're strong, Ilara. Stronger than you know. You'll adapt." She did. Day by day, she grew more comfortable in her own skin. Both skins. Her wolf became less a separate entity and more an integrated part of herself. The distinction between Ilara human and Ilara wolf blurred into Ilara whole. and as her control improved, other abilities manifested. The healing came first. One of the younger guard members injured his leg during training, a deep gash that would take days to heal even with supernatural recovery. Alara had felt his pain through the pack bond, felt the wrongness of torn flesh and flowing blood. She'd placed her hands on the wound without thinking, and violet light had poured from her palms. The guard member had gasped as his injury knit itself closed in seconds, leaving only a faint scar. Matriarchs are healers, Theron explained later. Among other things, your power isn't just destruction, it's creation, restoration, balance. The command abilities came next. During a training exercise, she'd told a wolf to stop. Just a simple command, and her voice had carried alpha authority that made him freeze mid-step, unable to disobey. It had terrified her at first, the sheer weight of dominance she could exert. It's necessary, Sarah said, when Alara expressed her discomfort. Sometimes, stopping a fight with a word saves lives. Sometimes, commanding submission prevents bloodshed. You're not controlling them like puppets. You're exercising your right as their leader to keep them safe. The Shadow Guard became her family in those weeks. She learned their names, their stories, their quirks and scars. Theron, the Alpha King, haunted by prophecy and duty, carrying the weight of kingdoms. Sarah, the strategist, sharp mind and sharper wit, loyal to her bones. Kyle, the scarred warrior with ice-blue eyes, quiet, observant, deadly. Ronan, the tracker, could follow a scent through running water and driving rain. Marcus, not her Marcus, a different Marcus entirely, the healer. Gentle hands and patient wisdom. Lyra, the scout, fast as lightning, clever as a fox. Dante, the weapons master, every blade, every bow, every tool of war at his command. Finn, the youngest, barely 20, eager to prove himself. Orin, the elder, grizzled and sarcastic, veteran of 100 battles. And Ash, the quiet one, spoke rarely, but when he did, everyone listened. They trained her, protected her, became the siblings and friends she'd never had in Silvercrest Pack. The empty space in her chest, where the mate bond had been torn away, began to fill with something better. Genuine connection, freely given, earned through respect rather than forced by magical compulsion. And Theron was complicated. He never touched her without permission, never pushed, never assumed. But she felt his attention like a physical weight. Felt the way his eyes tracked her across rooms. Felt the restraint in every careful distance he maintained. The mate bond between them wasn't fated. They both knew that. She'd had her fated mate, and he'd rejected her. Whatever existed between her and Theron was different. A choice, a possibility. Something they both felt, but neither rushed to name. The prophecy speaks of the guardian and the matriarch, he told her one evening as they stood on the balcony, watching sunset paint the mountains in fire. But it doesn't demand romantic union. We can be allies, friends, leaders who respect each other. Nothing more is required. And if we wanted more? The question escaped before Alara could stop it. Theron's hand found hers on the stone railing. Then more could be chosen. In time. When you've healed. When you're ready. If you decide I'm worth choosing. You saved my life. You saved mine first. His thumb traced circles on her palm. We're even. Days turned to weeks. Alara grew stronger, more confident, more herself than she'd ever been. Her eyes remained violet even in human form. A permanent change, Sarah said, marking her as matriarch for all to see. She was beginning to think she might actually be ready for whatever came next. Then the scout arrived. Ronan burst into the training grounds at a dead run, shifted mid-stride, and nearly crashed into Theron. "Alpha King, we have a problem." The playful mood that had filled the yard evaporated. "Report! Silvercrest Pack! They're mobilizing!" Ronan's chest heaved. 20 wolves, maybe more. Alpha Marcus leads them. They're moving north. Toward us? Theron's voice dropped to something dangerous. Toward the border. They're hunting someone. Ronan's eyes found Alara. "You. They're hunting you." The words hit like a physical blow. Alara's hands clenched into fists. How close? Half a day's march. They'll reach the border by nightfall. Theron's power pressed against every wolf present as his control slipped. They dare to hunt her, to invade my territory. He cut himself off, breathing hard. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. "Shadow Guard, full deployment. We meet them at the border." "No." Alara stepped forward. "I meet them." "Alara, they're coming for me, Theron. Let me face them." "You've been training for 3 weeks. They're seasoned warriors. And I'm the matriarch." She met his eyes, let him see the steel in her spine. "I'm done hiding. Done running. Marcus rejected me, cast me out, and now he wants to hunt me down. Then let him come. Let him see what he threw away." Silence fell. Then Sarah laughed, a sharp bark of sound. "She's right. Let the matriarch show her old pack what she's become." Kale nodded slowly. "The prophecy speaks of judgment. Perhaps that time is now." Theron studied Alara for a long moment. She could see the war in his eyes, protectiveness versus respect, fear for her safety versus recognition of her right to face this. Finally, he inclined his head. "Then we go together. The Shadow Guard and the Matriarch. If they want war, we'll give them something far worse. We'll give them truth." They met the Silvercrest war party at the border as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The boundary was marked by ancient stones, each carved with territorial symbols. On one side, Theron's lands. On the other, neutral ground that bordered Silvercrest territory. Marcus had brought 23 wolves. Alara counted them as they emerged from the tree line, warriors in their prime, fighters who'd trained their whole lives. At their center, Marcus himself, larger than she remembered in his wolf form, his dark fur bristling with aggression. And beside him, beautiful and vicious, Kara Vex. The Shadow Guard numbered only 10, but they radiated power that made the Silvercrest wolves hesitate. Theron stood at their center in human form, naked and unbothered, every inch the Alpha King. And Alara stood beside him, violet eyes blazing. Marcus shifted to human form. Several of his wolves did the same, including Kara. They stood across the boundary stones, and Marcus's eyes widened when he saw Alara. "You're alive," he said, and she couldn't tell if it was accusation or surprise. "Disappointed?" Alara's voice came out cold and controlled. "You're a rogue. You have no pack, no protection. The bounty is void." Theron's voice cracked like a whip. "She is under my protection. She is mine." Marcus's lip curled. "Yours? You claim a broken Omega. What use could she possibly?" His words died as Alara shifted. The transformation rippled through her like water, smooth and controlled. She rose to her full height in wolf form, towering over Marcus even in his shifted state. Her silver-white fur caught the dying light, seeming to glow from within. Her violet eyes fixed on her former mate with an intensity that made him step back involuntarily. The scent of his fear satisfied something dark in her chest. That's not possible," Kara whispered. "Omegas can't. They don't." "She was never an Omega," Sarah said from Alara's right, having shifted to add her presence to the show of force. "She was bound, caged, locked away by those who feared her. And you, Marcus Thorne, You did her the greatest favor of your miserable life when you rejected her." "Who is she?" Marcus demanded, though his eyes never left Ilara's massive wolf form. "I am the matriarch," Ilara said, and her voice in wolf form resonated with power that made the ground tremble. She shifted back to human form, standing naked and unbothered like the predator she'd become. "I am the Alpha of Alphas, the moon's chosen vessel. And you, Marcus Thorn, are trespassing on my territory." "Your territory? You have no. These lands belong to the Alpha King," Theron interrupted, "and the matriarch is his equal. We share dominion here. Which means you and your war party are in violation of territorial law." Marcus's jaw clenched. "We came to retrieve what belongs to Silvercrest Pack." "I belong to no one but myself." Ilara took a step forward, and her power pressed outward like a wave. Several of the Silvercrest wolves whined and dropped to submissive postures. "You rejected me, cast me out, left me to die in a blizzard? You have no claim on me, Marcus. You never did. You stole. I stole nothing. I took nothing. I left with the clothes on my back and the wounds you gave me." Her voice hardened. "But if you want to talk about theft, let's discuss what you stole from me. 5 years of my life. My dignity. My sense of worth. My belief that I deserved love." Kara moved then, faster than Ilara expected. She shifted mid-leap, jaws aimed for Ilara's throat. It was a killing strike, meant to end the conversation permanently. Ilara didn't even think. Her hand shot out, caught Kara's wolf form by the throat midair, and slammed her into the ground with enough force to crack stone. Kara yelped, tried to scramble away. Ilara's knee pressed into her chest, pinning her. The size difference was almost comical. Ilara's wolf was nearly 3 times Kara's size, and even in human form, the power differential was absolute. "You tried to kill me," Ilara said conversationally, "in front of witnesses. Unprovoked attack on the matriarch." She looked up at Marcus. "What's the punishment for that in pack law?" Marcus said nothing. His face had gone pale. "Death," Sarah supplied helpfully, "or exile, or submission to the injured party's judgment." Ilara looked down at Kara, who thrashed weakly under her knee. She could kill her. It would be easy. One squeeze, one twist, and the woman who'd stolen her mate would be gone. But even as the thought formed, she knew she wouldn't do it. Wouldn't become the monster they'd tried to make her. "I could kill you," Ilara said softly, for Kara's ears alone. "I could rip your throat out and leave you bleeding on neutral ground, and by pack law, I'd be within my rights. But I'm not Marcus. I'm not cruel for cruelty's sake." She leaned closer. "You wanted an alpha's power? You wanted to stand at the top? Congratulations. You have it. You're Luna of Silvercrest Pack, mated to a man who throws away treasures because he's too stupid to recognize them. Enjoy your prize." She released Kara and stood. The woman scrambled backward, shifted to human form with blood trickling from her mouth. "Here's what's going to happen," Ilara announced to the assembled wolves. "I am claiming these borderlands as neutral territory under my authority as matriarch. No pack may hunt here. No pack may war here. This is sanctuary ground, protected by my word and the Alpha King's strength." "You can't," Marcus started. "I can." Violet light flared in her eyes. "And I just did. You wanted to know what became of your rejected mate? Look at me, Marcus. Really look. I am what the moon goddess intended me to be. I am power unleashed. I am justice incarnate. And I am so far beyond you now that you couldn't reach me if you spent a lifetime trying." She gestured to the Shadow Guard. As one, they shifted. 10 massive wolves, each one larger than any alpha in the Silvercrest party. Each one radiating ancient power. They weren't normal werewolves. They were dire wolves, old ones, touched by magic that predated pack law. The Silvercrest wolves saw and understood. They were hopelessly, hilariously outmatched. Marcus fell to his knees, not in respect, in defeat. "Mercy," he said, the word bitter as ash. "Grant us mercy, matriarch." Elara studied him for a long moment, studied the man who'd been her fated mate, who'd rejected her, who'd sent her to die. She felt nothing. No love, no hate, nothing but the cool assessment of a ruler deciding justice. "You will return to your pack," she said. "You will tell them what happened here. You will spread the word that the matriarch has risen, and that these borderlands are under my protection. You will leave offerings at the boundary stones. Food, medicine, tools, as tribute for the sanctuary you violated. And you will never, ever threaten me or mine again. And if I refuse," Elara smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut, "then I will visit Silvercrest Pack myself, and I will challenge you for alpha status. And we both know how that fight would end." Marcus's head dropped. "I accept your terms." "Good." She turned to the Shadow Guard. "Escort them to the border. Make sure they leave." As the Silvercrest wolves began their retreat, Kara hanging back as if to say something, Elara held up a hand. "One more thing. My parents. They bound my power. They crippled me out of fear. I want them brought here. Not as prisoners, but I need to speak with them." Marcus nodded jerkily. "I'll send word." "See that you do." They left, and the tension bled out of the air. Elara shifted back to wolf form, threw her head back, and howled victory. The Shadow Guard joined her, and the sound echoed across the mountains. A declaration, a warning, a promise. The matriarch had risen, and the world would never be the same. Her parents came 3 days later. Elara met them in a private chamber, human-formed and calm. They looked older than she remembered, bent with shame and fear. Her mother's eyes were red from crying. Her father couldn't meet her gaze. "Why?" Elara asked simply. Her mother's voice broke. There were prophecies. Old women spoke of a child born under the blood moon with violet eyes. They said she would either save the world or destroy it. And we were so afraid. So you locked away my wolf, crippled me, let me suffer for 23 years. We thought we were protecting you." Her father finally looked up. "If the other packs knew what you were, they would have killed you as an infant, or taken you, trained you as a weapon. We wanted you to have a normal life." "A normal life?" Elara's laugh was hollow. "I was treated like garbage, rejected, cast out to die. That's the normal life you gave me." "We're sorry," her mother whispered. "We're so, so sorry." Elara closed her eyes, felt her wolf's presence, steady, powerful, whole. The anger was there, but so was understanding. Her parents had acted from fear, not malice. They'd made a terrible choice, but they'd been trying to protect their daughter. "I can't forgive you," she said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I understand why you did it." She opened her eyes. "I'm giving you a choice. You can return to Silvercrest and live with what you've done. Or you can stay here, serve the matriarch, and try to earn redemption." They looked at each other. Her mother spoke. "We'll stay, if you'll have us. Then you'll work in the healing halls. You'll serve those in need. You'll spend the rest of your lives trying to undo the harm you caused by helping others." Elara stood. "And maybe, someday, we'll find our way back to each other." Her mother sobbed. Her father nodded, tears streaming down his face. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. Weeks passed. The neutral sanctuary territory became known across the region, a place where rogues could find shelter, where the weak could find protection, where pack law gave way to something better. Elara stood on the balcony of the fortress, watching the sun set, when she felt Theron's presence behind her. "Thinking?" he asked. "Reflecting." She glanced at him. "I was rejected 4 months ago. 4 months, and my entire world has changed. Are you happy?" She considered the question. "I'm whole. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do. Is that happiness? It's a form of it." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers on the railing. "The Shadow Guard wants to formalize your position, make you co-ruler officially, not just in practice. And you? I want whatever you want. If you choose to rule, I'll stand beside you. If you choose to leave tomorrow and build your own pack, I'll support that too." His silver eyes met hers. "I'm not Marcus, Elara. I won't cage you, won't control you, won't demand you be anything other than what you are." "And what if what I want is you?" The words hung between them. Theron went very still. "Not because of prophecy," Elara continued, "not because of duty, but because over these months, you've shown me what partnership looks like, what respect looks like, what it means to stand beside someone as an equal rather than above or below them. Elara, I'm not asking you to be my fated mate. That ship sailed and sank spectacularly. But chosen mate? Partner? Equal?" She turned to face him fully. "Those things, I'm very much asking for." Theron's hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness. "You're sure? You've been through trauma. I don't want you to—" She kissed him, rose on her toes, and pressed her lips to his, cutting off his protests with action rather than words. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, his other arm banding around her waist. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone wolf silver. "I'm sure," Elara said. "I'm choosing you, Theron Blackwood. Not because destiny demands it, but because my heart wants it." His smile could have lit the entire valley. "Then I choose you back, Elara Moss. Matriarch, queen, equal. Mine." The bond that formed wasn't fated. It was chosen, and somehow that made it stronger. She felt it click into place, different from what she'd had with Marcus. This was built on respect, trust, shared purpose. This was partnership in its truest form. "There's still work to do," Theron murmured against her hair. "Pacts to negotiate with, laws to reform. The old powers are stirring, and they won't like a matriarch upsetting the balance. Let them stir." Elara's eyes flashed violet. "We'll be ready." And so Elara's journey from rejected Omega to matriarch queen reached its pivot point. She'd been betrayed, broken, and cast aside. But from the ashes of that pain, she'd risen stronger than anyone could have imagined. She'd found her power, her purpose, her people, and her partner. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the key that unlocks everything you were meant to be. But this was only the beginning. In the north, ancient evil stirred. The blood moon approached, bringing with it challenges that would test everything Elara had become. What did you think of Elara's transformation? Could you feel the power in her first shift? Have you ever had someone underestimate you, only to prove them spectacularly wrong? If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in Elara's journey. There's so much more to come. Darker threats, greater powers, and the true test of what it means to be matriarch. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next chapter.